So, what does it mean to create a pedagogical environment for TechCom that places collaborative knowledge making front and center? In the recent Solving Problems in Technical Communication, Johnson, Lola, and Selber provide heuristic frameworks for thinking about TechCom, or ways of thinking about communication problems that, quote, help a technical communicator step back and analyze how the situation is being defined and what the sometimes competing goals are in an attempt to balance the factors in the problem space of the communication problem before constructing a solution. Such frameworks are important for technical communicators, they claim, because today's communication problems are subjective, rarely solved permanently, and engaged by multiple actors. Besides recommending this very helpful book, I'd like to talk about some of the frameworks for teamwork I provide to my students. The first one is the activity of team building itself. When students start a collaborative project in my class, I encourage them to think of their fellow teammates as resources for getting the job done. In my projects, all students have to be a resource, in other words, meaning that they have to discover a way to plug themselves into core activities that will make the project a success. This encourages hesitant students to get themselves into the mix and more confident students to make sure everyone feels like they have a place in the project. I've done this several ways in the classroom. Through encouraging students to come up with and enact their own team building exercises, for instance, through doing skills inventories that help them think about what types of skills they bring to a given project, and through giving students a complex problem to take on right at the beginning of a project that must be solved collaboratively, such as researching all the possible ways of completing the project and then vetting as a team which ways or combinations of ways seem like the best approaches. Another thing I do in a general sense is focus a lot on the art of knowledge making itself, rather than on specific modes and technologies of communication. This means giving students open-ended projects to complete, problems that meet Johnson, Lola, and Selber's criteria. They are subjective, rarely solved permanently, and require engagement by multiple actors. For some examples of the projects I commonly teach, you can see the teaching tab on my website, Attw, which will lead you to many of my assignments and also my course sites. Common question I get about this approach is, what happens to industry standard tools and best practices? My answer is always that sometimes I think we in TechCom can fall into the trap of thinking of the term technical communicator as a job description only, which of course it can be, but I think we need to remember that it is also a seemingly endless multiplicity of these heuristic frameworks, many of which have to be invented within a specific communication situation. In such a field, then, I think the best thing we can do is focus on knowledge management as a form of project management. We can encourage students to think of what specific types of knowledge they need to assemble, in other words, to solve a particular communication problem, rather than approaching communication as something with necessary and predefined attributes